going on, Vikings fans? Welcome to the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, I wanted to dive into 5 surprise cut candidates for your Minnesota Vikings following the 2024 NFL Draft. And I said surprise cut candidates because we're going to be getting wild on today's show. Let's start off with a former first-round pick for the Minnesota Vikings, safety out of Georgia, Lewis Cine. And I know a lot of you guys may be shocked by this, but with the recent moves the Vikings have made, I don't think it is completely unlikely that he could be cut before the start of the 2024-25 NFL season. And let's look at the cap savings that would go down if the Vikings were to cut him. And this is where it gets a little sticky because the Vikings necessarily wouldn't be saving too much because of the dead money that would be on their books if they do ended up cutting Lewis Cine. But pre-June 1st, they would save $3.6 million, but have $6.7 in dead money. And then post-June 1st, they would save $2.2 million and still have $5.4 million in dead money. And you maybe ask yourself, well, why would the Vikings do that if it would be a net negative on this year's books? Well, it's just because the safety room is absolutely loaded right now. I mean, you got a 3-headed monster in Cam Bynum, Harrison Smith, and Josh Metellus. All 3 of those players will be playing majority of the reps for Brian Flores and his defense. They're all extremely, extremely versatile, and I can't see Lewis Cine jumping any of them. And then if you could look even further down the depth chart with a guy like Theo Jackson, Jay Ward, who is the draft pick in the 3rd round last season for the Vikings, like I think they are almost closer to getting playing time ahead of a guy like Lewis Cine, even though he was a first-round pick a couple years ago. And overall, I just feel for Lewis Cine. I mean, if you look at his career path right now with the Minnesota Vikings, his rookie year going down, or not playing a lot in this rotation, he just wasn't really a good fit with Ed Donatel and his defense. And then last year with Brian Flores, like he wasn't able to crack the rotation at all. Obviously, he was coming back from the compound leg fracture he suffered in London a couple years ago. But, you know, my heart kind of goes out for Lewis Cine because I still think he's a good football player. But with where this Vikings defense is and how loaded that safety room is, I could really see him being the number 1 surprise cut candidate. We were like, wow, I did not see that coming, that Lewis Cine ends up being cut from the Minnesota Vikings. But you guys let me know, would you cut Lewis Cine, type C for cut, or give me a K for keep down below in the comment section? I'm probably still keeping him, just kind of banking on the potential there as he was a former first-round pick. But maybe you guys disagree with me. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. Number 2 on my list, I got Patrick Jones II, the defensive end out of Pittsburgh. And let me tell you something. I was a huge fan of his coming out of college, mainly because there was that viral video of Patrick Jones and Aaron Donald working out back at Pittsburgh. And he's a menace coming off the edge. There's no doubt about it. But, you know, the Vikings could save some money by cutting him. And, you know, pre-June 1st, they save 1.3. Post-June 1st, save 1.3 as well. And then the dead money is the exact same. So the Vikings could save around $1 million by cutting Patrick Jones. And, you know, I think this just comes down to, where is he going to get reps? Because you got Dallas Turner. You got Jonathan Greenard. I think those 2 will be the starters week 1 for Minnesota. But even a guy like Andrew Van Ginkel, he is still there for the Minnesota Vikings. You got Andre Carter, who was a UDFA last season. Like, I just don't really see, you know, how many reps that Patrick Jones would be getting in Minnesota. And listen, overall, my take on Patrick Jones is, you know, I'm a big fan of him. Like, I think he has a ton of potential left still in the NFL. I've liked what I've seen from him on tape over the last couple of seasons. But, you know, is he cracking the rotation over Dallas Turner, over Jonathan Greenard, over, you know, Andrew Van Ginkel? No, he is a pure pass rusher, and he doesn't really offer too much versatility for Brian Flores. And obviously we know he loves his edge rushers having the ability to drop back in the coverage and go get the quarterback. Well, Patrick Jones can't really drop in the coverage, and he's just been a mediocre, you know, producer in the pass rushing department. So I could definitely see him getting cut. But number 3 on my list is the linebacker Brian Asamoah, and all I have to say is, guys, I was wrong on Brian Asamoah 100%. I thought he was going to hit the scene hard this past season and really, you know, become a household name for Vikings fans, but they could save a good amount of money if they cut him post-June 1st. If they cut him post-June 1st, it would be $1.2 million saved and then only $292,000 in dead money. So you could still save around $1 million there. And maybe the Vikings are looking at other free agents like a Michael Thomas or even a guy like Dalton Risner, some of the interior offensive linemen out there, and they just want to scrap together $1 million here, $1 million here. I think Brian Asamoah could be high on that list as a guy they could cut because they signed Blake Cashman in free agency. And, you know, Flores, what he likes to do, he is at max at one time going to run 2 linebackers. You will never see 3 linebackers on the field. And if they are going to bring a third linebacker on the field, it's going to be Josh Metellus, Harrison Smith, or Cam Bynum. And, the 2 guys you see on screen, they're going to be getting 99% of the reps at that linebacker spot. We also know they love some of the UDFAs at that position they brought in, like Dallas Gant. But I just don't really think Asamoah fits with Flores' defense. And that was the number one takeaway when evaluating Asamoah last season. He really did not play too much last season. And I thought he would. I thought he would excel. But I was wrong on that 100%. He doesn't really offer too much versatility. He's a mediocre defender when guarding tight ends in coverage or slot receivers. Can't really blitz him off the edge. He's really just, okay in run defense and filling holes. Super fast, love the athleticism. But with what Flores likes to do, it's just not a good scheme fit. Personally, for him, I would rather see him go somewhere else and excel in more of a traditional 4-3 defense. I think that's where he is at its best. But with what Brian Flores likes to do, man, I just don't really think it's the best fit for Asamoah. We'll get to do 2 more names here in a second, but first off, guys, I got to tell you guys about the best deal going on right now. And if you guys head to chatsports.com/Vikings jersey, you guys can get your J.J. McCarthy jerseys today. Rookie minicamp just started for the Vikings, and he looks great out there rocking the purple and gold. And if you want to support him, support our show here at Chat Sports, I really encourage you guys to hit that link, chatsports.com/Vikings jersey, and get your J.J. McCarthy jersey today. All right, number 4 on my list is Andrew Booth Jr. Second-round pick out of the NFL draft a couple years ago, and this was another situation where I was wrong. I'll just admit it. Andrew Booth just has not worked out in the NFL so far. He's been really just, he hasn't produced, and he's kind of been a head case in the locker room as well. But the cap savings here, you're not saving too much. This would just be a cut just to get him off this football team and allow him the ability to go somewhere else. As you guys see here, the dead money outweighs the cap savings, so this would put the Vikings, in the negative on cutting Booth. But I think they're going to consider it because this cornerback room, it is not loaded by any means. There is still a lot to do here, but they have 5 corners who are 100% going to be over them heading into this next season. Byron Murphy, Shaq Griffin, and Caleb Evans, Mekhi Blackman, and Kyrie Jackson. I think all of them will play over Andrew Booth. And let's just say the Vikings decide to keep 5 cornerbacks. They're going to choose Najee Thompson, one of the best special teamers and one of the best gunners in the NFL, over him. Now, if they do keep 6 corners, I could see Booth then being the 6th guy to make this roster, but I think the experiment might be over. And, I was always kind of holding out for Booth that, hey, maybe this is the year he takes that step. Maybe this is the season where he finally proves himself as a true cornerback in the National Football League. It just hasn't happened yet. I was wrong on him. I thought he was going to be really effective coming out of college since his Clemson tape was freaking awesome. But, he just hasn't produced. Obviously, injuries have kept him in and out of the lineup. But, overall, I just think this experiment is going to be over with the Vikings, drafting Kyrie Jackson. But let's kick it to wide receiver now. This was a shocker I put on here. And this was I got this from a couple other Vikings media members that tossed the idea out there that Jalen Nailor could be cut. I don't see the reason to. The cap savings are, you would save around $800,000, $900,000 if you do cut him pre and post June 1st, and the dead money's not, too strong for the former 6th-round pick out of Michigan State. But, their reasoning was this wide receiver room is just too loaded. And, I kind of disagree with a couple of the guys that thrown that out there. If I had to rank the Vikings wide receivers here, if we had a game tomorrow, I would have Nailor as the 4th receiver. I would still keep Brandon Powell at the wide receiver 3 spot, but maybe they go a guy like N'Keal Harry, Tristan Jackson, Lucky Jackson. We know Kevin O'Connell is a big fan of all 3 of those receivers, and maybe he would prefer that archetype of the bigger body wide out in comparison to the shifty kind of slot guy that Jalen Nailor is. But overall, I'm a Jalen Nailor believer. I have said this countless times on the channel. I just want him to finally, get his chance, because what does he do the best? He separates. He is a super shifty, super elusive wide receiver. And if you could roll out there, Nailor, Jefferson, and Addison, the amount of separation that those guys would create would be incredible. I actually just saw a cool stat on Twitter earlier today. It said the Vikings created the 4th most yards of separation against man coverage this past season. Credit to Jefferson, credit to Addison, even with Jefferson missing 9 games last year. And if you add Jalen Nailor to that bunch, teams legitimately, I don't believe, could run man defense against the Minnesota Vikings just because of the separation these guys would create. And, J.J. McCarthy, pretty accurate quarterback coming out of Michigan. I think that's just a pretty, solid combination. And also, I would like to see a Michigan QB throw to a Michigan State wide receiver as well. So I wouldn't cut Jalen Nailor, but I did see a couple of Vikings media members throw out there that he could be cut. But I just gave you guys 5 names. I'm only asking for you guys to give me one. Name a player the Vikings should cut this offseason. If I have to look back on my list and say the one that is most likely, I probably got to go Patrick Jones Jr., Brian Asamoah. Those are the 2 that I think are most likely to be cut. But I could also see the Vikings cutting none of these guys at the end of the day. But you guys let me know. Name a player that the Vikings should cut. And as always, guys, I'm going to be tweeting about the Vikings all year long. So give me a follow on Twitter. That's a handle right there, @PatSieps. If you guys give me a follow, I'll give you guys a follow back. But thank you guys so much for watching. See y'all next time. As always, Skol Vikes, baby.